resembles the S character, English character. But the date tree branch does, and I have 63 pictures of date tree branches showing them how they resemble the English letter S. Yet it's in the Quran. And God talked about the black holes and the white dwarfs, stars. Black holes are stars like our sun, not like our sun, but stars that have iron in them. When they explode, they turn into black holes. God Almighty said, فَأُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ, okay? I need not swear by the khunnas, the stealthy stars, the al-jawari kunnas, the ones that are sucking in with high speed celestial bodies. Al-jawari kunnas, kanas, when you sweep something out of the ground. And God said, وَإِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, because the earth, when our sun is shrunk into a condensed ball, spherical ball, our sun, because it doesn't have iron in it, will not turn into a black hole. Instead, it will turn into what is called a white dwarf, which is as big as our planet Earth, but it loses all its luminosity, and it's made of oxygen and helium. It looks white. Okay, so when the sun is shrunk into a condensed ball, kuwirat, and God said He sent down iron from space because our solar system doesn't have iron in it. Okay, sir. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ, Allah Almighty talked about وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ النَّجْمُ الثَّاقِبِ, the star that knocks, knocking star, and it's a penetrating star. Read about pulsars. I have on my website, and I have 5 recordings from NASA, 5 recordings of pulsars knocks. They sound like this, if you can hear me. And if they rotate so fast on themselves, it sounds like this.
1 minute.
These are sounds.
1 minute.
These are sounds of pulsars recorded by NASA. And God said, talked about the star that makes knocking sounds and is penetrating. And yes, pulsars were discovered, and they are knocking and they are penetrating. The shooting stars. Okay, God said that He made the stars, the actual stars, the lambs of our sky, of the heavens, rather. He said, not our sky. I'm sorry. He said, from their rays He shoots down the demons, and demons were created from fire, and so are the stars, smokeless fire. And so yes, that's just talking about gamma rays.
20 seconds.
And star explosions. وَالشَّمْسُ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, talks Allah Almighty in Noble Verse chapter 90, talks about our day layer revealing the glory of our sun, by sun and its glory, and the daylight, the day that reveals its glory. If you go,
Osama, your time is up. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 5 minutes now for Dr. Qureshi, and you may start now.
Thanks, Osama. It's been a pleasure. I would like to point out to everyone what Osama just did. He first misunderstood something I said about Sahih al-Bukhari in chapter 33, and then he went on to the miracles of the Quran, trying to show that the Quran is from God and therefore probably perfectly preserved by talking about miracles in the Quran. Let's address that before I conclude. First, he doesn't understand what I'm saying about chapter 33. If any of you has a Yusuf Ali Quran, go to chapter 33, verse 23, and look in there, and you will see in this chapter there are sections that were originally lost, have been written differently. For example, Ubay had words that are not found in Zayd's version. But also in Sahih Bukhari, we can see that part of this chapter was missing ahead of time, the first time it was written down. In other words, Zayd was commissioned to write the Quran by Abu Bakr first and then by Uthman. And when he wrote it down under Abu Bakr, he left verses out. It's very easy to leave verses out. There are lots of them, over 6,000 verses. It's easy to leave something out, and he admits that he did that. My point, how do we know that there weren't verses left out of this version, the second revised version, when verses were left out of the first one? The only reason it was caught was because one person mentioned something, and at that time they had the manuscripts. Now that person's dead, and all the manuscripts are burnt. How do we know parts aren't missing? It's very possible. In fact, we have people who say over and over and over again that there are sections missing throughout the Islamic sources. Whether you turn to Sahih Sitta, whether you turn to other books of commentary, we'll see repeatedly that people said large parts of the Quran were originally there and are there no longer. Notice Osama dropped the idea that this was something that had been forgotten, caused to have been forgotten by God. We know that abrogation only happened to commands, and the things that are being claimed to have been forgotten by Muslims themselves were not commands. They could not have been abrogated. They were just forgotten. He then starts referring to miracles of the Quran as if they somehow show that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. I couldn't catch them all because he wasn't listing them, but there is one in particular that he mentioned. Before I get to it, I want to quote Quranic scholar Abu Ammar Yasir Qadhi. I think he again captures this very well, this whole phenomenon about miracles in the Quran. It's actually kind of stretched. It's very contrived, and Yasir Qadhi catches that. He says, "The Quran is a book of guidance, not a book of science, nor a mine of cryptic notes on scientific facts. In other words, there are not scientific allusions buried under every third verse in the Quran, waiting to be unearthed by some overzealous, highly imaginative Muslim." And I think Osama is very zealous, and perhaps that quotation applies to him. Let's look at what he quoted. He quoted chapter 36 of the Quran, verse 39, and he refers to an S-shaped orbit. Well, when you read chapter 36 of the Quran, verse 39, it says nothing about an S-shaped orbit, nothing of the sort. In context, it's talking about a shriveling moon in relation to the sun that will stop rising one day. Let's see what Muhammad himself had to say about this, and then we'll compare it to what Osama says. Muhammad, in Sahih Bukhari, number 3199, said, "Do you know where the sun goes at the time of sunset?" The person responding said, "Allah and His Messenger knows best." Muhammad says, "It goes till it prostrates itself underneath the throne, and it takes permission to rise again, and is permitted, and then it will be about to prostrate itself, but its prostration will not be accepted. It will ask permission to go on its course, but it will not be permitted. It will be ordered to return whence it has come, so it will rise in the west." And this is the interpretation of the statement of Allah found in chapter 36, verse 38. So when Muhammad is interpreting this verse, he says, this is what the sun is doing. This is what the verse means, that the sun asks permission to rise. How does Osama
1 minute.
interpret it? He interprets it entirely differently. It seems, ladies and gentlemen, that Osama will disagree with Muhammad. Osama will disagree with Bukhari. He'll disagree with Muslim. He will disagree with Ibn Umar. He'll disagree with Ibn Abi Dawood. He'll disagree with Aisha. He'll disagree with Ibn Abbas. He'll disagree with Ubay ibn Ka'b. He'll disagree with Abu Masud. He'll disagree with absolutely everyone when it comes to whether or not the Quran has been perfectly preserved in order to promote his own point that it has. He has provided no evidence that it has. He's provided no source that says that it has. He's provided no reasoning that has been sound to show that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. And in fact, he cannot. He simply cannot. The Quran and all the manuscripts that had been transcribed under the supervision of Muhammad have all been burned, have all been destroyed. There's no possible way to say that this Quran has been perfectly preserved, but we have all the reason to believe that parts of it are missing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have now concluded our closing statements, and we are ready for phone calls. In fact, we're not going to miss a beat here. We have our first caller, and it happens to be Dr. James White. Dr. James White, are you with us right now?
I most certainly am, calling in from New York City.
Fantastic. And what's your question? And I'm sorry, who is your question directed to? May I ask?
Well, obviously, my question would be for Osama. I sat in the audience in 2008 when Osama, in a debate with David Wood, dismissed Sahih Bukhari 659 and 510 as being inauthentic hadith. Yet I think I just heard him in his opening statement quoting from them, which leaves me a little bit confused. But my primary question, and it didn't come up during the discussion, was does Osama Abdullah, like Bassam Zawadi did admit in his debate with Nabil Qureshi, does he recognize that there are documented textual variants, such as Surah 2, 222, where you not only have a change of a word, you have literally a major change that involves editing, changes of words, grammatical endings, et cetera, representing the stream of readings going back to Ibn Masud. Will he admit that those readings exist, and does he take the same answer for why they exist that Bassam Zawadi provided in the aforementioned debate?
Mr. Abdallah, would you like to respond, please? Osama?
The throne? Yes. Yes. First of all, regarding the sun prostrating under the throne, the Prophet said the Kaaba, the cubic building in Mecca, is the central point of our sky, of our, you can say, Milky Galaxy way, okay, or the theological central point. And so when the sun passes it, okay, Yes, it will prostrate to God Almighty because under the throne. And the Prophet also said, all the celestial bodies always prostrating to God Almighty under His throne. Okay, nothing about flat Earth whatsoever. I just demonstrated kifata and dahaha, where the Earth is moving fast, suspended, all that, and spherical. As to Dr. White's, and as to the S-shape, by the way, orbit, I didn't say S. I said Arabic has no letter that resembles the English letter S. Okay, but the only thing that resembles the S is the date tree branch, and I have 63 pictures of date tree branches resembling that shape. As to Dr. White, I don't remember the hadith that during my debate with Dr. Wood, Osama admits on variances in documents. The Quran can be read in 7 different dialects. Okay, like for instance, Maliki Yawmiddin and Maliki Yawmiddin. Okay, Maliki means the owner of the judgment, Day of Judgment. Malik Yawmiddin is the king of the Day of Judgment. It can be read in both ways. Both ways are complementing and completing to each other's. And that's what the Prophet said. These 7 dialects do not contradict each other's. They rather complement and complete each other's. Like in like the Prophet, when he talked about when Allah Almighty talked about creating us from many yumna, from sperm, nutfa, many yumna. The male and the female are determined by a nutfa, by a sperm. Nutfa is the selected one from the group. Okay, the male and the female, the Quran says, not just man or just man alone or males. Male and female are created from nutfa, which is a selected one from the group, the best one from the group. Okay, many and yumna. Many means gushing out,
Osama.
and yumna means speeding, and yamna or yamni means to cut and penetrate and pierce.
Osama, I'm sorry, excuse me, I hate to cut you off. In the interest of time, we do want to give Dr. Qureshi a chance to respond, and we are going to be going to break soon. Again, in the idea of keeping track of our time, would you like to make any comments?
Sure,
okay.
I would like to make comments.
And we're going to try to bounce back and forth here quickly. Thank you.
Dr. White, it's good to hear from you as always. I appreciate your question there. It's a good question. Osama has avoided it. There's a record that we have. It's called Fogg's Palimpsest, and this is a record of a Quran that dates back very close to the time of Muhammad. It's a fragment, and it's a part of a fragment that was written underneath the writing that we have now. That's what the term palimpsest means. And when you look at Fogg's, you'll see that there are actually a lot of differences between what was found there and what's found in the Quran today. Now what we have is a different sequence of words. You have omissions. You have different words altogether. You have orthographical variants. You have scribal errors, corrections, explanatory additions. You also have different contexts. There are so many different things about Fogg's Palimpsest when compared to this Quran that one cannot say this is just a difference of harf or ahruf. You cannot say that it's a minor difference. There are significant differences, and the interesting thing is those are the exact same things that Ibn Masud included in his Quran. And so we have records of Qur'ans that are different from today's Qur'an in our possession that we can see for ourselves, different in very significant ways. And I thank you, Dr. White, for calling and bringing that up. Okay, well, great. We're going to go to break right now at this point. I know we're kind of leaving people suspended in air as we respond. People obviously want to say more and make more comments. We will give you a chance. We have another break to get through in another portion of our program. So stay tuned with us. We'll be right back after this quick break. We do have some lines open. We'd like to hear from you. Understand, everyone that calls and everyone that responds, we're asking to manage our time as quickly as we can to be efficient, to get to our points as quickly as we can, and get as much dialogue going. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after this brief break.
You are watching ABN.
Over the world, Muslims saying Islam's about peace. Islam's about peace. We have no violence in us. No, Islam's about peace. The man does some cartoons. Old man in Denmark. The whole world, Muslims go crazy. Burn down embassies. Blow up places. Tear down American hamburger joints in Pakistan.